So guys, today we will cover the copy curve modifier of ALS and see that some things are not properly done if you use it. And we had this issue last year where we are in a game jam, and my friend Moet, I hope you will see it one day and you might start laughing, stepped into it. And the issue was that he retargeted the animations, and anything he did just screwed up every time, and he was very pissed. And I was sleeping. We have a time shift all the time, and I woke up and he said, I'm the the curves are messed up and I don't know why." And I said, "Calm down, explain what is going wrong," and then we found a solution for it. And let me show you what is going on here. So we use a turn and place animation from ALS, and we will see that we have some curves here. And these curves are not straight lines. So if we go here into edit selected curves, we will see that it's a very complex curve, and not a straight line like this one here, a rectangular curve. So if we select this key here, you will see that it's linear interpolation, and this one here has the can I select it or not? Why? Then let's use this one. And this one here has a constant interpolation. So here you can set some interpolation techniques, cubic or so on, and this is not copied over if you use the copy curve modifier from ALS. And what I will do now is remove the curves. So if you don't using Git, I would not recommend you doing this. Please duplicate the animation if you want to repeat the step here. Otherwise, you have to redo all the steps you did before, or save your work before, do a backup. So please don't do it, but we can do it here now because I'm using Git. So I'm selecting all curves and I'm removing all curves. So basically this is now broken in ALS, and we also remove the modifier. So let's remove the modifier. Yes, I want to remove it. And then here's the copy curves modifier. And copy curves, it says out of date, and we want to copy over all curves, right? And we want to find, or want to select the curve from the marketplace, from the normal mannequin. That's basically this curve. And if we do apply, or if we click on apply all curve, all modifiers, it will apply the modifier, or we do a right click and say apply modifier. If you have multiple of them, then we can do it one by one. And let's see if we can see it or not. And here you see, oh yeah, it's still a complex curve, this one, but let's compare it with the original curve. So let me open the window here. You can get this window by pressing Ctrl P. Thank you, Mohit, as well for this shortcut. I really like it. He taught me how to use it. And we can press Ctrl and V and try to find the original curve which we used for retargeting. And let me see if we can get both visible. Maybe not so great, but you will see the issue immediately. And here you will see this one is messed up. And this section here is messed up. Oh, I did something wrong. So this section here is messed up, and this one is completely different. And if we make the window bigger, we can see that here is a cubic interpolation selected. And if we click here and make it full screen as well, you will see, oh, why can I not select the curve here, the key? So here is linear interpolation. So not so great. And here is a cubic. Normally it should be cubic interpolation. And I think, yeah, we can open the modifier. So we open the modifier, and I will show you what is going wrong. Does curve exist? copy curves, remove curve, add float curve. So yeah, here's the issue. We say get float keys, and this one is only returning the time values on the x-axis and the values on the y-axis. So the key points are not copied correctly over, and if we, I think there's nothing, there's no function. You can only say get float keys, get transform keys. So yeah, so don't use this copy curve modifier. It will mess up your animations very badly, and you might not notice. So yeah, so how can we fix it? What we can do is go into the plugins folder, to TT Toolbox C++ classes, public, and do a right click here and say new C++ class. And now let me check out which class we need. Oh yeah, we need to select or click on all classes and search for animation modifier. So this one here basically, and we will call it TT. That's the naming convention I use all the time. TT copy all curves. Anim modifier. It's a it's a public class, and we said, yeah, we added to the TT Toolbox plugin, and click on create class. So it will set up everything for us in the C++ world. We need to use C++ here. The Blueprint version will not work, sadly, but we can still work on stuff in C++ as we are very skilled developers. So what we need to do is the following. We need to override one method. So we need to override onApply_implementation, and it has the signature or the argument for an anim sequence, and we need to say here override. That's a C++ keyword. So let me explain it or check it out with you guys a little quickly. So if you go to the base class with F12, and let's see if we find this here. So yeah, here is a virtual function or virtual method, and it's Bluetooth no, it's not. Sorry, it's not. It's a virtual method, and you can override it, and you get called when a anim sequence should be processed. And yeah, that's why we override it, and then we can copy the curves in this method over to the new animation sequence. And also what we need is, we will see later why this is public, to copy over to use the source anim sequence, where we want to copy over the curves basically, and this one is not needed. So we here say settings, of course. Yes, we can edit anywhere, and we only wanted blueprint read only, so that the blueprint is not able to override this stuff here. So that's basically the things we need. And you might wonder why I move this into the private section. And this is basically just the visibility of the method. So if you have a public instance from this class, you cannot access this method. You need to go the way that you use the base class here, basically downcast it. But anyways, this is C++ specific. You might get a headache already. Let's dive into the real implementation and see how easily we can fix it, even if we are not so skilled in C++ yet. So what we need is basically these lines of code. I will explain them one by one. and let's remove them and write down the comments like we did before. So here we say first check input arguments. That's what we do all the time. And then we need to copy all curves to the target anim sequence. And how we can do it is the following. We will use this for loop here. So why do we have some issues here? We can quickly check. Oh yeah, it's a Visual Studio issue. I don't know why IntelliSense is messed up in this project. Maybe I should do a build. Let me quickly close the editor so that we get proper IntelliSense hopefully soon. Oh yeah, I know why. This is wrong. Class name is wrong. So now we have proper IntelliSense. And as we see already, we have an issue here. It says basically this include cannot be resolved. And how you can fix it very easily is if you copy this into the clipboard with Control C and do Control comma and search for this header file. And if we go to here, open the folder where the header file is stored, you will see it's in the anim modifiers module. And here we can just copy over the name. And where is the build file? Here. It's basically the build system. So what we need to introduce in the public section is this one. So that we say our plugin is dependent on this module as well. And then if we rebuild the project, we should see any issues anymore. Animation blueprint library. Oh, crazy. But anyways, we will also add this module. Same procedure. So it's called animation blueprint library. Copy this name over, close the window again, and go to the build file. And it also needs to be public because we included this header file in another header file. And then we need to say it's public. Otherwise, you will have some issues if you try to build the plugin again. So what is going on? Did it work or not? Yep, now it works. So basically the frame is now set up for that we can implement custom modifiers in C++. And we can go back to our modifier. So here we stopped at working with the curves basically. So as we have seen before, this source sequence will be the animation we use as a source for the curves. And how we can access the curves is if we call the method get curves, and then we copy over all float curves. So we will not cover the vector curves and so on. I did not use them yet, and for ALS we don't need them. And in the curve we need to do the following. We need to check, or in the for loop, we need to check if the curve is already there, and if it exists we need to override it. So if this step is done, we need to remove it, and if the curve is removed or not available, we need to introduce a new curve, and then we need to prepare some objects. Here, prepare needed object to set the curve, to set the curve keys basically. Set the curve keys. That's what needs to be done here. And then if we copied over all curves, it might be a bit complex, but it works very perfectly. Then we need to transfer the curve keys to the new, or to the target animation basically. And how we can implement such stuff is the following. We check here at first the input arguments. We say we validate that the sequence we got is valid, and we validate that the source sequence is set as well, and we need to introduce an error message here, so we can just copy over this one here. We say log temp error called without valid sequence, use quotes here as well, or valid source sequence. And here let's change the name. We say target sequence because we were talking about target sequences, and you can only change the argument name here and leave it as it is in the header file, but I prefer to use the same name so that we don't get confused. And you might not wonder why we can change those names. That's basically how C++ works. You can rename the variables in an overridden method. So called on apply without valid target sequence or valid source sequence, and we remove this stuff here. I mean, you could improve this, but we want to focus on the implementation, so that's why I don't care a lot about this stuff here. And as I said, we now need to remove, let's go back, what happened? We need to remove the curve if there is one. And that can be done very easily if you call the does curve exist method from the animation blueprint library. That's a public method from Unreal Engine in the API. You can read in the documentation if you want. What it gets is basically the name, and the name we can derive from this variable. We say source curve, which is the current curve we are working on. Then we say name and then display name, and I think here is also a unique ID and so on, but we still need the name here, display name. And then we say, yeah, it's a float curve, and if it exists, we remove the curve. So it's now gone from the animation from anim sequence, not animation blueprint, from the animation sequence, and then we can go on. And how we can introduce a new curve is with this function here, function call. Also use the animation blueprint library, say add curve, and we need to say here the target sequence, and we use the same name. Then this is a bit not so easy to understand, but that's how the API is. We need to get a container name because that's needed to set the float curves. That's how the API is. Please don't blame me, blame the developer who created this API. I got a headache as well to understand how it works, because if you if you want to set the curve keys, there's no documentation, and we will see this in a few seconds. So what we now can do as well is here also prepare more stuff. And if we have the container name, then let's rename the variables here. I prefer to use small letters for local variables, and I prefer to use const for such stuff, because maybe I mess it up and change the name, then compiler will blame me that, yeah, you are not allowed to edit a const or to assign a new value to a const variable. And then also here, let's rename it quickly. Seems to be I did not follow my own rules, kind of. And then we need to retrieve the smart name for the curve. Don't ask why, I don't understand the system as well, but it works perfectly. And then we can create a curve ID. And if we have the curve ID and also the keys, we can copy over the keys and we are done with the implementation. So let's fix the namings here. And then we can say source curve, float curve, and get const reference of keys. And then it will copy them all over. If you also rename this stuff here as well. So if you use the target sequence and say get the controller, that's basically the object we need to get to modify the curves or to add curve keys and so on. And then we can say set curve keys. And if we go to set curve keys, that's F12 and F12 again, hopefully it works. Not the case. So let's see if I can show you the code. So no. Sometimes it does not work. Let me check again. So is it this one? Yes, basically here, as you see, the controller has a lot of methods and there is literally no documentation. I was just trying to get it working with a try and error process, and then it worked perfectly fine. And then we can copy over the curves, and here the same if we go to this method. So maybe there was not enough time yet to document those methods or functions. So here you can also say retrieve container name for curves, and this is a function which is not exposed to blueprints. Maybe that's the reason why there is no documentation, I don't know, but it's a public method and we just can call them and get the names. Basically it's used in the libraries here. That's how I figured it out how to use it. And if we close this file here and try a build, let's see if we have some errors. So the build is perfectly fine, but here we still have a to do, and yeah, that's something I don't like about myself. I'm just going on and implement the stuff, but sometimes I forgot to implement the error messages, and then we have silent errors. I really hate silent errors. That's why we are doing it here now properly, and we will come up with something like this. The curve %s, comma, or let's say failed to get container name for curve, and here we can just say, if I remember correctly, toString, and then we need to call the operator star to convert it to a tjar, and then we can use it with the logging system of Unreal Engine. Yeah, I know we cover a lot of stuff here, but you can also just copy the lines I write here, and then you have a proper curve, copy curve modifier. Failed to get container name for curve. We can say something like this: upworking, copy curves to and I think here we could do something like this. That's also quite helpful. Say get full path, I guess is the method. Get full name, get path. I think it's get how is it called? Let's use get name. And we need also to convert it to a tjar. That's what we can do with the star operator here. And let's build again. I'm pretty sure we will not see this issue. So far I did not have any issues, but once we have this issue and the curves are not copied over, maybe this message will help us. So, and as you have seen before, I basically close the editor. So, and now we will open it again. It takes some time. So hopefully it will ask us that we want to open the assets again, but sadly the editor did not. So which was it? Let's see if we can use Git here to help us a little bit about the asset we try to edit. You can copy the name here over and then press Ctrl P and insert it. Remove the stuff here. And here's the animation. So as we have seen before, the curves are messed up currently, and here we browse to the asset. So we select this one here with this button, and what we can do now is remove this modifier, and the engine or the editor asks us now, should the modifiers be reverted before removing them? We say yes. I did not remove them, so we remove them manually here. Normally it works. And now we should have the new curve modifier. The T copy all curves, anim modifier. We select this one and we just click on this small button here. It says use selected asset from the content browser, and then we have the same curve. And let's see if it works. If we apply the modifier, it did not. So something went wrong. Why does it not work? Interesting. I did not have this issue before. Oh yeah, this is completely wrong. We need to say if not valid or if not valid. So let's see if we can use live coding here to fix the issue. We click on this small button here and recompile the stuff, and then it opens this window for us. Live coding succeeded. So let's see if we can now apply the modifier. And yes, now we have the curves. So let's see if they are properly set up. So it looks quite good to me, but let's check if it is the case. So if I press Ctrl and B, we browse to the asset we are currently working on, and we can copy over the name again and press Ctrl P. Thanks, Moid. And for this shortcut, I really like it, so I really recommend start learning or using this shortcut as well to open quickly assets. If you know the names, you can also search for stuff here, and here you can select and we can compare with our eyes if the curves are similar or not. So let me move this to the left, and in my view they look very similar. They should be equal. We could also write a modifier here, a modifier which tests if they are having exactly the same values, but we are trusting our eyes now. And yeah, this is basically how you can add the curves with a working modifier, not the one which only copies the time and the value. And yeah, guys, as I said, I would really recommend you start using Git, because the last step what we can do now is reset the animations, because I don't want to introduce those changes into our workflow or mess up the work we did before. So I select both assets, do a right click here and set or say reset file or directory changes. It's the shortcut R, and we then click on reset again because it asks you, are you really sure? Yes, I am. I know what I'm doing, and click on reset, and then the changes are gone. And yeah, now we have a working modifier. This one was not reset it because it's in the plugins folder. If you haven't followed the git videos, you should. Then you will also see why. So it's quite a long session. I really hope you enjoy it, and we will see you in the next session.